It is time to change the way we think. Farmers are not the cause of Africa's poverty. They are a potential solution. They are key to creating the future envisioned by the SDGs. Ghanaian diplomat and former Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, aptly captures the critical place of farmers in the development that African countries like Nigeria desperately need. Many agree that some of the economic and development challenges Nigeria is grappling with today arise from the failure to recognize the place of crop production in a country populated mostly by farmers and endowed with tremendous natural resources to support agriculture. For over 4 decades, agriculture stopped being the focal point of Nigeria's economy. Yet, it remained crucial to the country's survival, guaranteeing food security for majority of the population and providing jobs for almost 70% of the workforce, as well as raw materials to support whatever was left of industries. Today, the dwindling value of oil is forcing a paradigm shift and a realization that farmers are a potential solution to the current economic challenges. But the gaps created by decades of neglect are now staring the country in the face. In many cases, Nigeria's agricultural practices and systems remain crude and laborious, despite the ease and increased productivity engendered by modern technology. These are gaps that non-governmental organizations like Partnership for Development in the Niger Delta (PIND) are looking to fill. On Farmers Market this week, we return to some communities in Imo State where PIN has been teaching some rural women farmers to change their old ways. Farmers Market, a program that promotes Nigeria's agricultural prowess, identifies the challenges besetting the sector and advocates policies and programs that will help grow Nigeria's agro-economy. Agriculture can only be sustainable if the farmer makes a profit. On Farmers Market, we know this. That's why we go the distance through rough, plain, and wet terrain to cover stories about Nigeria's agricultural resurgence. The issues may be small or big, unique to individual farmers or general. We cover them all because they come together to form the bigger picture. We listen to the farmers, understand their needs.
Accessing fertilizer is one of the challenges.
We experience their toils, celebrate their successes.
This is exactly the young market, the biggest in Nigeria.
We seek information necessary to help them make a profit. Farmers Market, growing Nigeria's agro-economy. Showing every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. and Thursdays at 9:30 a.m. on AIT. This is Umukabia, Ogodo, in Ngokbala local government area of Imo State, a village just outside the state capital, Owerri. It is a rural farming community that mainly grows cassava and produces oil palm. It's a common sight to see the rural dwellers preparing ground and fermented cassava paste into the most popular edible form, gari, a staple in almost every part of Nigeria and West Africa. Cassava has become the staple of more than 200 million people across the continent because the tuber is drought tolerant. It grows well in soils with modest nutrient composition and low rainfall, and its wide harvesting window allows it to act as a farming reserve. Cassava tubers are rich in carbohydrate, Its leaves are even richer. Experts say they contain about the same amount of protein as eggs. Its stems valuable for starch extraction and other uses.
The feed industry, they're also using cassava as raw material for the production of feeds for animals. And we are going lightly into production of ethanol from cassava, and some of this ethanol, they are being exported out of the country for other purposes in other areas. We have the chips that are there also, and the food market, they are going for gari, they are going for cassava flour. The bread industry are using it to go also in the bakery, and it becomes one of the household crop that every family in Nigeria will want to work on. So cassava is a major crop.
Cassava production worldwide has increased by 30% to approximately 225 million metric tons over the past decade and a half, with Africa producing over 54% of total output. In Nigeria, it is one of the most important staples. This probably explains why more cassava is produced here than in any other country in the world, about 60 million metric tons, according to the 2014 figures of the Food and Agricultural Organization, and it is mostly produced by women. Nigeria's cassava output could have been a lot more impressive, but production is hampered by the low average yield of 7.7 metric tons per hectare, compared to the 29 and 23.4 metric tons average yield produced in India and Indonesia. There are many factors responsible for Nigeria's poor cassava yield. Poor farming practices, low quality cassava varieties, and poor access to markets are some of them. Nigeria's current economic difficulties have made it imperative to tackle these problems and ramp up production of cassava with the help of several non-governmental organizations like PIN, and the efforts are beginning to yield positive results. Agriculture can only be sustainable if the farmer makes a profit. On farmers' market, we know this. That's why we go the distance through rough, plain, and wet terrain to cover stories about Nigeria's agricultural resurgence. The issues may be small or big, unique to individual farmers or general. We cover them all because they come together to form the bigger picture. We listen to the farmers, understand their needs.
Accessing fertilizer is one of the challenges.
We experience their toils, celebrate their successes.
This is Zaki young market, the biggest in Nigeria.
We seek information necessary to help them make a profit. Farmers Market, growing Nigeria's agro-economy. Showing every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. and Thursdays at 9:30 a.m. on AIT. It's early morning in Umukabia, and the women of the community are heading to the farms. They agree to allow our crew accompany them, but first they insist on giving us a traditional welcome with kola nut grown right in front of their houses.
Gentlemen, welcome. You are welcome to my house. Cola don't speak English.
It doesn't speak
Nicola.
Are you recording?
Emena Moji.
Very good.
Cola. Presented Cola before Igbo. I would have said it in Igbo. This is Cola.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hello, that G who brings cola.
That done, we set out. The journey is over half a kilometer, but we cannot drive because there are no motorable roads leading to the farms. We go through this path behind their houses. On the way, we come across farms, mainly cassava farms, demonstrating the importance of the tuber to the community. The farms are mostly owned by women, and some of them are already hard at work. Onyechi Amadi is one of them. She is preparing her land for cassava production. One of the factors responsible for the low yield in Nigeria's cassava production is zero tillage. Local farmers learned from generations before them that cassava can grow well even on hard land, and that is a tradition that many on this farm path have carried on. But Onyechi knows better. She has received good cassava farming practices training from Pain.
Are you planting it the old way?
No, ridges.
Are you able to manage the baby on your back?
I wasn't back him because I don't want to sleep. My baby is very sick. Yeah. Though I came here with somebody that is helping me. So I also want to help the person, show him the place if it clear more.
We continue our journey to this farm owned by Veronica Njoku, one of the women leaders in Umukabia. It's small but different from all the other cassava farms we have seen along the way. Unlike the others, there are ridges, and there is a measured consistency in the way the cassava plants are growing. Veronica is confident that this farm will produce a lot more cassava than those around her because of the knowledge and improved practices she has acquired.
As an officer, executive member of the society, I have to showcase what I have learned from what I'm being taught.
So tell us what you have learned.
Yes. So, one, how to make ridges. Before, we just plant ordinarily. There is no stump here. That is why I can be able to make these ridges. But in the bush here, we don't make ridges because there's plenty of stumps. That is why we are looking for tractors that can help us do these things. So now I've planted improved variety. When paint came, 2016, they brought Umudike, Umuahia, agriculture people and gave us improved varieties. So we now planted it last year and saw that it was wonderful. Then I decided to do it on my own. After applying fertilizer, in one ridge I can get a bag of cassava. A bag, one full bag.
Two cassava farms growing side by side. This one planted with the old method, while this one here has ridges, which is the latest method for growing cassava. Now, I'm told that the old method will give you about 7 tons per hectare in harvest. But here, you'll be able to get at least 20 tons per hectare.
Farmers, they still use cutlass, they use their hoe, and there is a limit to what they can do. Now, cassava is a deep-rooted crop, so you need the depth of penetration needs to be the soil needs to be loosened, the depth of penetration for the tuber. So if you want it to expand, the soil has to be loosened to the bottom. But what you do is just use their hoe and do the surface and even bury the tuber. which affects the growth and affects the way the tuber grows in the soil. So there is no room for it to expand. There are different orientation for different climates and different environments. So if, for instance, you just bury, you realize that you have your tubers, instead of going deep down and expanding, you're just getting just stems. They are growing up, and all you are getting is stems. And when you uproot and you harvest at the end of the day, what you are getting is very small, because you have used the orientation is favoring stem production instead of root production. So there is a different orientation with which you plant. There is a spacing that is required for you when you plant. So if you don't follow all this process, you realize that at the end of the day, what you are making is far less than what you should get optimally.
Another of the women leaders in Umukabia community, Comfort Chidieke, a retired primary health care worker. Even as a worker, Comfort always maintained a farm, giving her something to fall back on when she retired.
That is the best alternative. I was farming, I was so much interested in farming. And if any woman is married to Umukabia and you are lazy about farming, you may not even live happily with them, because it's a common practice there, and you get interested.
The women of Umukabia may have learned the best practices in cassava production, but they are still set back by various challenges, biggest of which is land.
Our challenges, one, to acquire land. We cannot acquire as many as we feel we can, because here our husband measure it bamboo to bamboo, and if you are buying, you will buy like that. Maybe after buying this person's own, the other person cannot be able to sell her own. So that is how they give us the land bamboo to bamboo.
You said your husband mentioned measure it for you.
Yes, they measure.
That you cannot go and get land yourself.
Unless outside, but here, if we want to farm, it's the duty of our husbands to measure it for us so that you can see your own and enter into your own.
Our land is left fallow for 4 to 5 years. There's a lot of storm when that becomes a particular farming area in any year. A lot of storms, and it requires the use of tractor to get the land prepared. We don't have money to hire tractors here. In fact, it's a very big challenge. It limits our zeal and productivity.
The women also represent one of the biggest challenges of agriculture, that of aging farmers and the inability to attract the youth to the farms, especially in rural areas like this one.
It's a very big challenge. It's difficult to get somebody who would dig the ridges and the mouths for us. And one plot of land, so if you are lucky to get somebody, the person will be charging about 10 to 12,000 to dig ridges for you.
I'm wondering, madam, as women, why is it difficult to get your children into what you do?
We know that most of us have their children in schools, but those ones who are at home may not yield to farming. In fact, people are more, the young ones are more interested in things that will give them money on the spot.
As demonstrated by our trek to the farms, the lack of roads is another major problem, considering the sheer weight of cassava tubers when harvested.
We use our wheelbarrow. You can hardly see any woman here who hasn't got a wheelbarrow. And if anybody happens to not to have one, the person will go to borrow. And yes, on a day, somebody can harvest cassava in the bush and leave it there for 2 days, just because you have not gotten a wheelbarrow to convey it out.
For the women, bicycles are the most popular means of transportation, but there's so much that it can carry. All work and no play. Not good for anyone, especially the hard-working women of Umukabia. It's International Women's Day, and the women led by Comfort and Veronica have come to celebrate. They have gathered at this community forum organized by PIND to share experiences and give feedback on the progress made with their improved cassava farming methods.
Zero tillage was the only generally practiced method of cultivation. Improved variety of cassava stem was unknown to us. There was little or no application of fertilizer for greater yield. The cost of labor was comparatively high. Little or no money accrued to our harvest because the yield was low. But today, we are motivated to farm with greater zeal and interest because we are sure of the outcome of harvest.
We expose them to different stakeholders in the value chain, in the sector, who are involved in changing their knowledge, attitude and practices. So these farmers are able to go through different training process to understand the current and modern ways of cultivation. Beyond that, we realize that farmers also plant very old varieties that are giving them low results. You can imagine in Nigeria, averagely, our yield in cassava is between 8 to 12 tons per hectare. Whereas in other countries, and even the research institutes will tell you, it's possible to get up to 40 tons per hectare. So what then is the gap? It's about knowledge. It's about what we know and how we are applying what we know. So we had to expose these farmers to improved varieties. We linked them to the research institutes, the ADPs, the service providers who can actually make them to assess these varieties. And we took it a step further by having demonstration farms at these communities, because we believe that farmers learn from what they see. So from all these, farmers were able to learn practically hands-on demonstration from land preparation to harvest. And these improved varieties, different varieties were used on the demonstration farms. So beyond that demonstration farms, farmers are now able to assess these varieties, multiply it in their farms, and now they are getting better yields.
They have also come to talk about the challenges they face in the bid to ramp up cassava production.
Our economic advantage is limited by the absence of cassava processing plant for the processing of cassava into various products, which is of great economic value and of course beneficial to women. Let me add here also that gari, which is our most common end product of cassava in this community, is still being prepared in a local archaic method.
PIND has gone a long way in building the capacity of the women to ramp up cassava production. But without good marketing strategies and policies, increased production may just amount to wasted efforts.
There are times where farmers produce and they don't have enough to, they're not able to sell everything. So if there are policies around market, especially in the industrial market, to be able to expand their, uptake of those products, that will go a long way to help cultivation for farmers to really improve on their production. And then again, the government, in terms of their policies, can also help in making these facilities available. We are not asking that you buy and just dump at these farmers, because if you do that, if you come back in 3-4 years, they may not be able to adopt it. But let's look at for support markets. Let's look at for who are the tractor operators, who are those who are in the business of making tractors available. What schemes are available that they can actually key into, then they know they are in business. So with this kind of people, you are sure that in the next 10, 20 years, it's sustainable. They are in business, they have an incentive, they have the value proposition, and they are able to run with it. And if these people are there in strategic locations, you see farmers, they know who to go to, they know where to go if they need these facilities. Farmers can pay for services if they see the value in it. So I'm not supporting that we should just throw things at them because it's not sustainable, but let's work with the support market, with the market system, to be sure that there is an incentive for the right people to actually assess this, key into these schemes, assess these facilities, and make it work.
That's Farmers Market for this week.